look at our fantasy values, do a little prop stop and a team lean on Circle on the Wagons and the Bills Mafia. So let's get to the fantasy football gridiron. Let's start out with Josh Allen. Right now, according to average draft positions at best ball 10s and drafts conducted over the last couple of weeks, he is quarterback one. 24.00 is the ADP. So going on average right there in the back half of round 2 in a 12-team format. So PJ, at that valuation currently, what are your thoughts on Josh Allen? Is he overvalued, undervalued, or properly valued?
No, I think Allen's properly valued at that number. Again, just so impressed with him last season, Brad, the development that he made, and again, trading away Stephon Diggs, I think was the best thing for him and his development last season. Allen's knock on him was always the turnovers. It was never his playmaking ability. It was never his ability to throw for touchdowns, rush for touchdowns. It was just the boneheaded interceptions, the fumbles. But he minimized all that last year, and that's why he won MVP. So coming into again this year, we talked with Gene Battaglia earlier. Pretty much the same kind of skill set, Brad, right? With the addition of Elijah Moore, who could be a sneaky guy to look out for in fantasy this season. I would expect Allen to put up similar numbers. You know, he's going to do his thing rushing and passing. And if that's the case, I always think nowadays, Brad, in fantasy, quarterbacks sometimes can be a little undervalued. Some of the top tier ones, especially if you get those rushing touchdowns and rushing yards, and Allen certainly fits into that. So I think QB1, 24, I think he's properly valued. I think he is the guy this season once again.
Yeah, look, I think he's probably valued overall. I'm going to say he's ever so slightly overvalued at QB1. The only reason I say that, I have Lamar Jackson at QB1. And I got to stick to my guns. So I got Josh Allen at QB2. It's semantics. I'm splitting hairs here. I mean, he's great. You're right there. Let's say at the turn, the round 2, round 3 turn, is he worth debating? Hell yeah, he is. I mean, a guy that Mike Clay's got projected for 3,504 passing yards, 24 passing touchdowns, 10 INTs, 515 rushing yards, and 10 rushing touchdowns. Had a dozen rushing touchdowns. That big body of his, he gets that runway. Takes those snaps and shotgun, calls his own number behind that big burly offensive line, just plows through for 6 so often. Such an effective play inside the 5. You're going to see that early and often. He was number 9 in total air yards last year. Only number 26, though, regressed in adjusted completion percentage. Number 26 in deep ball completion percentage, 15 in red zone completion percentage. But those numbers could benefit from having, addition of Elijah Moore, season number 2 of development there for Keon Coleman. Khalil Shakir is very consistent. He was number 3 in red zone carries, averaging 1.9 per game. Again, I like the guy, slightly, though, overvalued at QB1 in my estimation. Let's go to the Chef Boyardee of running backs, that being James Cook. RB14, 40.51 overall is the ADP. PJ asking again. Overvalued, undervalued, or properly valued, my man?
So, Brad, I feel like the last couple years in fantasy, right, we always run the risk with some of these running backs that are potentially looking for new contracts. And we know James Cook obviously is looking for his new deal. He wants $15 million. He's not going to get that. So is there a risk he could miss some games this season? There is, I guess. Cook, I think he's properly valued, though, at that number. Again, I don't think he's going to be one of the elite guys in fantasy football. I don't think his upside is that, but he's solid. And I think what really helps James Cook this year, Brad, is that schedule, right? So Buffalo, who's been a team throughout the Allen and McDermott era, usually when they're favorites and they win games, they usually blow teams out, right? They're not usually winning games by like a field goal. They're usually winning games by 24, 30 points. If that's the case, obviously they run the football and Cooks can get some garbage yards that way. So maybe a touch undervalued at that case, but I think because of the small chance that he does sit out some games wanting that new contract, I think he's properly valued there at RB14.
Yeah, I've got him exactly at RB14 on thegamingjuice.com. Check out all my rankings there, thegamingjuice.com. It's absolutely free at Jack Wagons. You look at the Bills. James Cook has the 7th easiest fantasy football projected schedule according to Full Time Fantasy. So Yeah, I mean, he could have a really good year again. You're going to see some TD regression, though. I mean, I scored 18 times last year. But even if you look at Mike Clay is accounting for that regression, giving him 11 TDs on the ground, 2 through the air, along with 1,081 on the ground yardage, 286 on 37 receptions through the air. That shakes out to RB12, according to his algo. So he thinks he's going to be a little bit better than RB14. He was number 16 in yak per attempt, number 12 in missed tackles force. Pretty solid advanced analytics profile. Only saw 58% of the opportunity share, but he was top 15 in total red zone touches, number 8 in fantasy points per opportunity. However, number 26 in EPA fantasy points per game. So that is a bit of a concern. Again, 14 feels right to me. I think he's properly valued. Just don't bank on 18 touchdowns. Again, from one James Cook. How about Khalil Shakir, wide receiver 28? 112.01 is the ADP. Overvalued, undervalued, or properly valued, PJ?
I think he's undervalued, Brad. I really do. Now, again, with being a receiver on the Buffalo Bills and not being like Stephon Diggs, the way that they spread it around, he's not going to give you those crazy 12 reception, 150, 60 yard games, 3 touchdowns, all that. But he's just steady. And I think, Brad, a lot of times with some of these receivers, so many of them are boom and bust, where one week guy might get you 5 points, another week he might get you 25. Feels like Shakir is just steady Eddie. You know, he's consistent, and I love that in my receivers, especially if you're drafting him in like the wide receiver 28, 30 type range. I think he's properly valued. I think, you know, he's not going to be certainly the upside of some of the top guys in the league, but because he's Allen's number one guy, he's trusted on third down, he's good in the red zone, kind of plays that Cole Beasley role type for the Bills when he was there. I like Shakir, wide receiver 28. I think he is properly valued, Brad.
Overvalued. Way overvalued. I got him a wide receiver 42. And you already brought it up. You gave me supportive reasoning in your positive argument. Spreading the ball around. And a guy just didn't score a whole lot because he didn't get a ton of red zone work overall. I mean, look at Khalil Shakir, what he's projected according to Mike Clay at ESPN. 102 targets, 76 receptions, 854 yards, 4 touchdowns, wide receiver 39. Again, I got him at 42, 6.7 targets per game, healthy. Only number 85 in total air yards last year. Only number 44 in total red zone targets, though he was number 2 in yak. Number 7 in separation. He's a good receiver. Number 10 in route win percentage. He gets breathing room. He gets space. He doesn't score often, and that really boosts the bottom line in fantasy. So I think Shakir is overvalued. Dalton Kincaid, tight end 14, 158.31 is the ADP on him. Is he overvalued, undervalued, or properly valued?
Yeah, I'm going overvalued on Kincaid, and you heard Gene talk about it earlier. You know, still got Dawson Knox there, and Allen's a big fan of his. They're good friends. They drafted a tight end this year in the draft. So Kincaid just hasn't obviously turned out to be the guy that they thought he would. And I don't think he's going to have all that great of a year. His receiving yardage is at 600. Gene liked the under on that. I tend to agree with him, Brad. So I think Kincaid more so feels like a tight end 17, 18 to me. I think he's overvalued.
Way overvalued. I got him at tight end 21. I mean, Dawson Knox is still there. He's going to be stealing away some of those red zone looks, and they love running the ball inside the red zone again with James Cook and Josh Allen. And this is absurdly overpriced. He was only number 16 in total red zone targets last year. Maybe we're going to see some positivity to the overall stat line, but the 2 touchdowns, it might be replicated again. I will pass. All right, let's move on. Let's do a little prop stop. Josh Allen, 500.5 rush yards at BetMGM, minus 110 on the over, minus 110 on the under. What say you, PJ?
I'm going to go under on this because anybody who watches the Bills know that when it comes to the regular season, much like when the Ravens do this with Lamar Jackson, they pick and choose their spots in games where they really want to run Josh. Bills don't have many big games this year. They play the Ravens, they play the Chiefs, they play the Eagles. That's really kind of it. They're going to be massive favorites in a lot of these games. They really don't need Josh to run. They're going to save him as much as they can for the postseason. Because of that, Brad, I'm going to go under the 500.5.
I'm going to go barely over. Really good line set, though, on Josh Allen. Quickly, PJ. James Cook, 9.5 rushing touchdowns, minus 110 either way.
Well, you mentioned, I mean, he had the 18 last year. He's not going to get that again, but I think he does get double digits, so I'll go over on Cook.
I will also go over. There's going to be TD regression, but it's probably going to be like 11 or 12 on the ground in the end. Keon Coleman, I made up this number myself. No line out there. 799.5 receiving yards, over under.
We'll go under. I do expect him to be better. I don't think he's going to be that much better, though, Brad. I'll go under 799.
I think he's going to be the breakout sensation of this wide receiver core. Give me the over. I think he's going to be around 825 in the end. All right, finally, a team lean over under 11.5 wins for the Bills. Minus 150 in the over, plus 125 in the under. What say you?
Over for the Bills, Brad. They're going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. I think they're going to go 14-3 this season.
Yeah, I'm going over. Mike Clay gives them a 60% or greater win probability, believe it or not, in 15 games. We need just a dozen to cash in. That's why it's heavily juiced the over.